My name is Jake. At a charity gala I paid for, my own sister publicly toasted family and made sure to exclude me. People laughed. What followed involved contracts, receipts, and a room full of witnesses who stopped smiling. If you've been crossed by family in public, share your story in the comments. My sister raised her glass saying, "Cheers to family," except for Jake. Then the lights changed. The ballroom was already loud with plates and small talk when Laura pushed her chair back. Our family table sat close enough to the stage that people kept glancing over, recognizing faces, doing that polite double take. She tapped her spoon once, lifted her glass, and smiled toward the room. "Cheers to family," she said, pausing just long enough to make it land, except for Jake. A few laughs scattered. Not roaring, just enough. Phones came up. Someone at the next table leaned toward another guest and said, "Is he serious?" The server beside our table froze with a tray halfway down. At the stage, the lighting shifted as the program moved on. Brighter, steadier, like nothing unusual had happened. Laura held her glass up a second longer, then drank. Across the room, Marcus, the MC, looked down at his printed run sheet. He didn't smile. His eyes flicked from the page to me, then back again. He touched his earpiece and said something to the stage manager I couldn't hear. His jaw tightened briefly. No one laughed this time, anywhere nearby. My phone vibrated against the table. An automated email slid onto the screen. Sponsor segment in 90 seconds. The timestamp showed 7:58 p.m. The clock mounted above the bar read 8 o'clock. Seconds felt misaligned here. Laura sat back down, setting her glass beside her plate. She leaned toward me without turning her body. "Relax," she said, still holding her phone upright, camera open. "It's just a joke." Someone at our table cleared their throat. Another cousin pretended to be very focused on the centerpiece. From the corner of my eye, I caught movement near the tech table. A badge lay face down beside a stack of programs. The lanyard read, "Presenting Sponsor," but the name was hidden. Behind the curtain line, a slide glowed on a monitor meant only for staff. I saw my name there, Jake Miller, waiting, queued, not yet pushed to the main screen. A coordinator whispered urgently to another, hands moving faster than her voice. Programs were restacked, then aligned again. The house announcement chimed in, overly calm. "Please silence your phones during the program." Laura lowered hers by an inch. She didn't turn the camera off. Marcus stepped closer to the edge of the stage, shuffling his papers. A stagehand raised 2 fingers at him. Someone else counted down with a nod. The room's attention drifted forward, away from our table, toward whatever came next. Another vibration buzzed against my palm. The same email refreshed, identical wording, as if the system needed confirmation it had been heard. At the tech table, the flipped badge was turned face up. My name showed clearly now. Marcus straightened, took a breath, and lifted the microphone. The lights over the audience intensified, washing the room in white as he glanced one last time in my direction and opened his mouth to speak. Finally. Marcus lifted the microphone and said my name like it was any other line on the page. "Presenting sponsor, Jake Miller." Applause followed automatically, the kind people give before they decide how they actually feel. A few claps landed late. A few didn't land at all. Heads turned, searching. Someone at the back stood on a chair for a better look. The sound thinned out as eyes settled on our table. Laura didn't look at me. Her smile stayed fixed, polite, practiced. The uncle across from her shrugged, palms up, like this wasn't his business. A cousin reached for a drink that was already empty. Nobody said a word. Marcus didn't pause. He didn't explain. He didn't soften it. He kept reading. This evening wouldn't be possible without the support of our sponsors. At the tech table, a staffer flipped the badge that had been lying face down. Presenting sponsor caught the light, and beneath it, my name. The same name Marcus was still saying out loud. A woman near the aisle leaned toward a man in a gray jacket and whispered, "They're really doing this?" He answered without looking up, "We go by the contract." Another voice, closer this time, sharp but low. Family stuff shouldn't be on stage. Marcus's tone stayed neutral, almost stubbornly so. He thanked the donors, he followed the order, his eyes never came back to our table. The applause finished dying on its own. A coordinator stepped into the aisle beside us and bent slightly. "Jake," she said, careful, "we need you at the tech area to confirm visuals." Before anyone at the table could react, a security guard moved in from the opposite side, blocking the path back toward the family seats. He didn't touch anyone. He just stood where the aisle narrowed, hands folded, face blank. Laura finally turned her head. "See," she said, "not a big deal." Her phone was still out. The screen glowed. She didn't hit record again. She didn't need to. At the tech area, a laptop sat open to a checklist. My name appeared at the top, bolded. Sponsor acknowledged successfully. The line looked finished, settled, like the night had already agreed on its version of events. A printer nearby spit out a page with the same phrase stamped across the top. No context, no tone, just confirmation. A staff member handed it over without comment. "That's standard," she said, "just documentation." On stage, Marcus wrapped the segment and moved on. The room followed him. Attention shifted the way it always does, toward whatever is officially next. Conversation resumed in pockets. Someone laughed too loudly near the bar. Another vibration hit my phone. "Sponsor withdrawal window closes at 11 p.m. The message came from the same address as before. No greeting, no explanation, just a countdown dressed up as a reminder. The coordinator leaned closer. "We'll need a quick sign-off," she said. "Nothing complicated." Behind her, the slide deck refreshed. My name stayed in place. The next sponsor's logo waited underneath, grayed out. From the family table, Laura watched, chin lifted. Her smile had thinned. Not gone, just adjusted. The guard shifted his stance, widening it slightly, still blocking the aisle back. A subtle change, enough to notice. Someone at the tech table asked, "Can you confirm now?" A pen appeared on the clipboard, angled toward my hand. The line for a signature sat clean and empty, like it had been waiting longer than tonight. On stage, the program rolled on. Chairs scraped, plates clinked. The room stayed busy, indifferent. Nobody asked what had just happened. Nobody needed to. The email refreshed again, the same words, the same deadline. The clock on the wall ticked past 8. Marcus glanced over once more, not at me, but at the clipboard, then at the coordinator. He nodded, barely perceptible, and turned back to the microphone as the next speaker approached. I took the pen, felt its weight, and leaned closer to the clipboard while the guard shifted again, the aisle narrowing behind me as the lights held steady and the countdown continued. The tech booth smelled like warm plastic and paper. Staff moved fast, speaking in short bursts, hands never idle. A projector hummed while someone adjusted a cable with their foot. A laptop sat open on a folding table, my name still visible at the top of the sponsor checklist. Another staffer slid a binder toward me without ceremony, flipping it open to a tab already marked. Pages were highlighted, corners bent, used. This was not improvised. The binder rested between us like a neutral third party waiting to be consulted. Nobody asked questions yet. They just waited, watching closely now. I leaned over the binder. The contract copy was thick, official, the kind printed on paper that resists folding. A yellow highlight cut across a paragraph halfway down the page. The line was plain, unadorned, and impossible to misunderstand. Right to name removal and funds reallocation upon reputational harm. No italics, no bold, just there. A coordinator traced the sentence with a capped pen and nodded once, like this was routine, like people triggered this clause every weekend. Marcus stood nearby, reading his phone, pretending not to listen. The projector kept humming behind us at all. The slide with my name still hadn't gone live. It waited in the queue, paused for confirmation. The timing glitch made sense now. The email said 90 seconds because the system expected approval, not because the program was late. Someone had built in space to decide. A staffer whispered that they couldn't advance without my sign-off. Another glanced toward the stage, counting beats under her breath. Nothing here was accidental. It was procedural, clean, and designed to look polite while pressure accumulated. Forms stacked nearby, already filled out with dates and signature lines, waiting for exactly this situation tonight only. Laura appeared at my shoulder like she belonged there. She didn't look angry. She looked efficient. Her voice stayed low, controlled enough to pass as concern. "You'll ruin Mom if you do this." Her words landed between the hum of equipment and the shuffling feet. Messages started lighting my phone at the same time, names popping up from the family thread, one after another. Nobody asked what happened. They asked what I was about to do. A cousin wrote, "Stop." An aunt wrote, "Think." No punctuation, just pressure. Laura waited, watching my hands hover near the binder without blinking once. The coordinator cleared her throat and asked if we were ready to proceed. Marcus stood a few steps back, arms at his sides, eyes forward. Nobody intervened. The contract stayed open. The clause stayed highlighted. A decision point had been reached without anyone announcing it. I asked them to keep the program moving as scheduled. Then an email went out from my account, copied to legal, invoking the clause by number and page. The wording was clinical and short. No explanation, no apology, just action. A confirmation bar crept across the screen while staff exchanged quick looks. Nobody spoke yet. The response came back instantly, automated and perfectly timed. Request received. Processing time up to 24 hours. It felt absurd given the noise around us, the urgency, the countdowns. The system didn't care about context. It logged requests and sorted them later. A printer chirped again. Another form slid out. The same sentence printed twice, once bolded, once not. No human reviewed anything before the queue. A staffer nodded like this was closure. Laura exhaled sharply, then smiled again. The countdown email refreshed on my phone. 11 o'clock stayed highlighted in red. Nobody acknowledged the shift yet. Everyone worked. A name appeared in the CC line of my sent email. The firm's counsel, listed with an office address downtown. The coordinator mentioned paperwork would need signatures in the morning. She said it casually, like confirming a coffee order. Marcus finally spoke, voice low, professional, saying he hoped tomorrow would be smoother. He didn't ask me to reconsider. Staff reset the booth, preparing for the reel. Cables were straightened, papers aligned. The process moved forward without sentiment. Laura stepped back toward the aisle. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. A stage manager leaned in, waiting for confirmation from somewhere else. A voice cut through the booth noise, announcing they were rolling the sponsor reel. Screens shifted. The cued slide prepared to advance. Staff looked between monitors and the stage, hands hovering. The clipboard was pulled away, signature line still empty. Someone asked if everything was locked. Another answered yes before I could speak. The room leaned forward together as the reel began. My phone buzzed again with the same deadline. 11 o'clock remained unchanged. Marcus nodded to the stage manager. The program didn't wait for me. Applause rose on cue. I stood still as it played with my name pending. The sponsor reel rolled across the main screen, smooth and uninterrupted. Logos faded in and out. Names followed. When Jake Miller appeared, the reaction came late and uneven, like the room had to decide whether clapping was still appropriate. A few people did. Most didn't. Chairs shifted. Someone coughed. The program kept moving anyway. A coordinator leaned toward the tech table and spoke into a headset. Another nodded and typed fast. A notification pinged across the internal chat, then another. The reel ended. The next speaker stepped forward. No one referenced the name that had just passed. A man in a dark blazer approached with a practiced expression. "For clarity," he said, low but firm, "the organization is placing a temporary hold on the funds until clarity is achieved." He didn't wait for a response. He didn't ask questions. The words sounded rehearsed, like they'd been sitting in a draft folder. Two staff members nearby nodded at the same time, already aware. The phrase, "clarity achieved," landed like an endpoint, even though nothing had been clarified yet. A tablet turned toward me showed a short notice with the same language. No signatures requested, just acknowledgement. The phone buzzed again. We need distance. That was it. No greeting, no explanation. A partner who'd been friendly for years chose that exact moment to step away. Another message followed from a different contact, asking to talk next week instead. Not tonight, not now, somewhere safer. Laura had moved away from the booth. She stood near the wall, phone to her ear, back half turned. Her voice carried just enough. He embarrassed the family, she said. No, publicly, in front of donors. She paced once, then stopped. A nod. Another nod. The call ended. She typed quickly, thumbs confident, then slipped the phone into her bag like the job was done. At the tech table, someone pulled up footage from the floor. The clip showed my face when Marcus said my name. It showed the pause. It showed me standing. That was it. Another staffer scrolled back further, then forward again. The table feed didn't record, she said. There was an issue. The issue had timing. The angle that would have caught Laura's toast wasn't there. The audio cut in late. The only thing preserved was my reaction. Context disappeared cleanly. Nothing to review, nothing to debate. Marcus stood beside me now. No microphone, no script. He spoke quietly. I can't change what's live, he said. Everything runs on paperwork and timing. He gestured toward the tablet, the notices, the checklist with completed boxes. The model was clear. Decisions happened before people argued about them. Once logged, they stood. A staff member approached with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. We're going to need you to step away from the tech area, she said, just to cool down. The words sounded reasonable. The request wasn't framed as an order, but the space behind her had already narrowed. The same guard from earlier shifted slightly, opening a path in one direction only. Another email arrived. Hold placed. It came from legal. Plain subject line, nobody text, just confirmation. The timestamp was immediate, efficient. Whatever leverage existed an hour ago no longer applied here. The coordinator avoided eye contact as she unplugged a cable. Someone else slid the binder closed and tucked it under an arm. The contract disappeared into a bag. The booth reset itself, ready for the next segment. Business continued. Laura passed by on her way back to the floor. She paused long enough to lean in. You didn't have to make this a thing, she said. You chose this. No response came back. There was nothing to add that would change the sequence now. Her heels clicked away, steady, unhurried. The guard gestured again. The exit behind the stage waited, unmarked. Applause rose for the next speaker, fuller this time. The room recovered quickly. It always does. The office lights came on in sections, half the floor still dark. Facilities hadn't restored access everywhere yet. My desk looked smaller without the stacks that usually lived there. 2 file boxes were gone, pulled overnight for review. A yellow tag sat where they'd been, printed with a barcode and my name. The inbox finished loading before the computer fan settled. Meeting canceled. That one came from a partner who'd insisted on urgency the week before. No reason given. Another followed from internal compliance, asking for a written explanation related to recent events. A deadline sat at the bottom, bolded, polite. The calendar invite disappeared as if it had never existed. The family group chat stayed still. No typing dots, no reactions. The last message was from an aunt the night before, a single word that didn't need punctuation. Disappointed. Nothing after that. Silence had weight when it arrived all at once. A call rang through and went to voicemail without being answered. Another email replaced it. Same sender, same distance. My coffee went untouched as the screen filled with neutral language designed to pause everything without admitting fault. The system didn't accuse, it suspended. Paperwork spread across the desk, pulled from backups and folders that hadn't been flagged yet. Forms from prior events, approvals that had gone through Laura without comment. Her name appeared where mine should have been, often enough that the pattern stopped feeling subtle. She always volunteered to speak, She always joked when people were watching. She always asked to handle things verbally and waved off anything that required a signature. None of it had raised alarms before. It had just felt familiar. Keeping quiet had seemed efficient. Letting her talk had felt easier. Silence had been framed as cooperation for years. The cost showed up now, itemized. The goal shifted without ceremony. There was no explaining left to do, not to family, not to partners. The only thing that mattered was putting the right documents in the right hands at the right moment. A message came through from Marcus. No greeting, no sympathy. AV vendor wasn't internal, it read. Outside contractor. Names Blue Current Media. A second followed. Original program file edited at 7:41. Change request logged under Laura's email. That was all. He didn't add commentary. He didn't need to. The information landed clean, heavy enough to redirect everything. The vendor name pulled up quickly. A standard site, testimonials, a support number, a login portal, nothing dramatic. The program file request showed timestamps, version numbers, and a note field marked urgent. The urgency had been added minutes after Laura left the table. The timing matched too well to ignore. Another internal email arrived, reminding me not to contact partners directly during review. The tone stayed friendly. The restriction didn't. The printer warmed up. Logs came out in batches, each page stamped with time and user ID. The edits weren't complicated. Slides reordered, audio delay adjusted. A single feed toggled off, then back on. The record showed who asked for it and when. The record didn't care why. A calendar alert popped up for a call that no longer existed. It vanished after a second, replaced by the compliance deadline, noon. The family chat stayed silent. That was fine. This wasn't for them. Another message from Marcus came through. They'll say coincidence, he wrote. They always do. The printer stopped. A stack of paper waited. The timestamps lined up into something that could be shown without commentary. A pen circled one time entry in red, 7:41 p.m. The moment Laura stood up from the table and stepped away. The moment her phone disappeared from view. The moment the program shifted direction without announcing it. Another email arrived from legal confirming receipt of the earlier notice. It asked for supporting documentation when available. No rush. Just procedure. The stack of logs slid into a folder. The folder went into a box that hadn't been tagged yet. A note on the lid read simply, AV Edits. Date, time. Conference room was smaller than expected. Just a table, 4 chairs, and a screen mounted slightly too high. No windows, no observers. The kind of space designed for decisions that weren't meant to travel. A folder sat in front of the firm's counsel, already opened. Tabs marked sections with color-coded labels. This meeting had a shape before anyone spoke. The attorney didn't waste time. Laura's actions weren't just personal, she said. They were structural. She slid a document across the table. It wasn't from the gala. It wasn't new. The header named a family trust, established years earlier under our mother's name. Laura was listed as interim administrator, temporary on paper, broad in practice. The trust controlled discretionary funds tied to donations, appearances, and representation. Image mattered because image triggered access. She positioned herself as the family's voice, the attorney continued. That status protects the arrangement. The room stayed still. The explanation moved forward without checking for reactions. This wasn't the first time, she said. She signed as representative at multiple events. Same pattern, same language. Pages turned, dates lined up, different venues, different causes. Laura's name appeared consistently where no one had questioned it. She didn't need to win an argument. She needed to maintain a role. The gala wasn't about humiliation. It was leverage. The attorney pointed to a line item tied to the trust. If your name had stayed clean, her position weakens, she said. The toast reframed that. Details from the night slid back into focus with new weight. The flipped sponsor badge. Not a mistake. A delay tactic. The program couldn't advance without confirmation. Time bought space. The change in AV vendor, not a budget decision, control over feeds. The missing angle wasn't an accident. It was a request logged under Laura's email, approved because she was listed as authorized. A second folder opened, this one thinner. She filed a complaint this morning, the attorney said. Internal. Claims you threatened to pull funding to coerce the organization. The wording was careful, familiar, designed to sound reasonable when skimmed. A witness statement sat clipped behind it. A donor who'd been sitting 2 tables away claimed the toast was misheard. Not denied, misheard. The sentence softened into ambiguity. They'll argue intent, the attorney said, and confusion. The room stayed procedural. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody used names unnecessarily. The pattern spoke louder than any single act. The consequence followed cleanly. Because of the dispute, she said, the withdrawal clause is frozen. Access to the trust paused. Authority stayed with Laura during review. The same system that allowed her to operate without question now insulated her. It wasn't personal loyalty. It was paperwork continuity. The attorney closed the folder halfway, then stopped. We can proceed, she said, but you'll lose access during the review. She let that sit, not as a warning, as an option. Losing access meant no direct involvement with funds tied to the trust, no decisions, no counters, no visibility. Everything filtered through counsel and committees. The system favored whoever already sat closest to the center. Another document slid forward. A timeline, edits, authorizations, all lined up clearly, enough to establish behavior, not enough to end it quickly. This isn't about proving she's wrong, the attorney said. It's about where you apply pressure. Silence followed. Not heavy, focused. The attorney tapped one date on the timeline. This is where she overreached, she said. Not with you, with process. She didn't elaborate yet. That came later. For now, the choice stayed simple. Fight access and stall everything. Or step back, document, and wait for the room where proof carried more weight than family titles. The meeting wrapped without ceremony. Papers stacked, folders closed, no handshakes. The attorney stood, already shifting to the next obligation. Outside the room, a message came through on the phone. Another notice from compliance. Review ongoing. No timeline provided. Laura hadn't reached out. She didn't need to. Control didn't require conversation. The hallway felt longer than before. Staff passed without stopping. Everyone moved like the day was normal. For them, it was. The attorney paused at the door. If we proceed this way, she said, you won't be able to intervene directly. The words weren't dramatic. They were logistical. Access would close. Visibility would narrow. That was the cost of playing this through structure instead of noise. The screen on the phone lit again. A calendar alert for a meeting I was no longer invited to appeared, then disappeared. Control adjusted itself quietly. The attorney waited a moment longer, then nodded once. Let me know how you want to move forward. The boardroom filled slowly, chairs scraping, folders opening, tablets lighting up as people took their seats. Nameplates faced outward, titles printed clearly beneath each one. This wasn't a family space. Nobody here cared who grew up together or who shared holidays. They cared about process, liability, and what could be defended later. Laura sat 2 seats down from the chair marked Interim Administrator. She wore the same composed expression she always used in public settings. A legal pad lay untouched in front of her. Confidence didn't require notes. When it was my turn, the chair nodded once. Go ahead. The packet slid across the table in sections, already organized. No speech, no framing, just documents placed where everyone could reach them. Logs came first. Timestamps, user IDs, sequential edits. The AV contract followed, highlighted where authorization was defined. Then, the emails, printed cleanly, headers intact. These are the program edits from the night of the gala, I said. They show who requested changes and when. A board member skimmed the top page. Another leaned closer, adjusting glasses. Nobody interrupted. Laura shifted slightly, then smiled. "This looks technical," she said. "These things happen all the time." Her tone stayed light, dismissive, familiar. A few heads nodded. Coincidence was a comfortable explanation. "The timing overlaps," she continued. "Systems lag. People misremember." The chair turned a page. The logs didn't argue back. When the next section came out, the AV agreement, Laura's smile tightened. "I don't manage vendors," she said. "That's not my role." The board secretary typed steadily, not looking up. "Please state for the record who authorized the change," she said, voice flat, procedural. The question hung longer than expected. Laura glanced toward counsel. The pause stretched. The room waited. Before anyone could redirect, the final document slid forward, a transcript page, followed by an audio file queued on a shared device. The label was plain: Internal Vendor Recording, time-stamped the same minute as the edit request. The chair nodded again. "Play it." The voice wasn't mine. It wasn't Laura's either. It belonged to a project manager at Blue Current Media, steady, professional. "We received instructions from Laura Miller to swap the feed and delay the sponsor slide," the recording said. She confirmed she was authorized. The room didn't react immediately. No gasps, no commentary, just a collective recalibration. Laura's eyes moved to the table, then back up. "That's not," she started. The chair raised a hand. "For the record," he said, "the authorization is clear." The secretary kept typing. Laura straightened. "This was about protecting the family," she said. "There was a risk." Another hand went up, this time from a board member. "Your role," he said, "is administrative, not representational." The distinction landed hard. Papers shifted. Someone closed a folder. Another wrote a note, slower now. The chair spoke again. "Your authority derives from trust guidelines," he said. "Those guidelines don't extend to unilateral program manipulation." Laura's expression changed. Not shock, calculation. "You're misunderstanding," she said. "I was preventing damage." The secretary didn't look up. "Please limit responses to the question asked," she said. Silence followed. The evidence didn't need reinforcement. The sequence spoke for itself. A board member asked about prior events. Another referenced a date from the packet. The pattern widened. Laura's counsel leaned in to whisper. She shook her head once. The chair glanced around the table. "Given what's been presented," he said, "we're issuing a temporary suspension of administrative authority pending review." No emphasis, no drama, just outcome. Laura's chair scraped as she shifted back. "This is premature," she said. "You're overreacting." The chair didn't respond. The secretary typed the decision word for word, pausing only to confirm spelling. "Effective immediately," she read back. "Laura Miller is suspended from trust management during investigation." The gavel wasn't used. It wasn't needed. People began organizing their materials. The room loosened, conversation breaking into smaller exchanges about next steps and timelines. Laura stayed seated, hands flat on the table, eyes forward. The secretary slid a printed notice across to her. "This acknowledges receipt," she said. "No action required at this time." The irony wasn't commented on. As the meeting adjourned, chairs pushed back. The chair caught my eye briefly and nodded once, not congratulatory, just acknowledging that the record had been set. Laura stood last. She gathered her things carefully, movements precise. No one stopped her, no one followed. The packet went back into my bag, lighter now that it had done its job. Voices filled the room again, already moving on to other agenda items. At the door, the secretary called out once more. "For the record," she said, "this session is concluded." The changes appeared without ceremony. One morning, the foundation website refreshed, and Laura's name no longer sat beneath the heading that read, Representative. The page didn't announce the update. it just existed in its corrected form, clean and impersonal. A staff email followed, sent to a long distribution list, confirming interim adjustments. Nobody replied all. Nobody questioned it. Another message arrived from the board, summarizing next steps, timelines, review periods, contact points. The language stayed neutral, stripped of names where possible. The decision had already moved past personalities. It lived in procedure now. Family found out the same way everyone else did. An automated notice forwarded too widely, a link shared without commentary. The group chat flickered once as someone opened it, then settled back into stillness. No defenses arrived. No explanations were offered. Silence landed again, this time without confusion attached. A text came through mid-afternoon. "Can we talk privately?" Laura's name sat above it, unchanged. The message stayed short, careful, framed as reasonable. The response went back with the same restraint. "Please direct everything to counsel." No follow-up came. The typing indicator never appeared. Communication narrowed after that. Contact stayed open for one person only. Calls from Mom still came through, tentative, logistical. Questions stayed surface level. No money, no strategy. Just updates about appointments and groceries and weather. That channel remained, guarded, separate from everything else. The rest closed quietly. A settings screen opened. The family contact list disappeared behind a new number, shared nowhere. One emergency line stayed active, clearly labeled. Everything else rerouted into silence without notification. Documents moved next. Contracts, logs, emails, audio files, screenshots. Each item uploaded, labeled, timestamped. The cloud folder filled in orderly rows, each file named without drama. Receipts didn't need narrative. They needed storage and redundancy. A final check ran. Permissions confirmed. Access limited. Nothing left on a local drive. The phone buzzed once more with an automated update from the board's system. Review ongoing. No action required. At the office, access returned in increments. File boxes reappeared on the desk. The yellow barcode tag vanished. Calendars repopulated with meetings that had never been personal to begin with. Work resumed without comment. Another email arrived near the end of the day. Your access has been fully restored. The message sat alone in the inbox, unadorned, sent by a system that didn't know what it had replaced. A second notification followed seconds later. No further action required. The timing felt almost considerate. The laptop stayed open as folders synced one last time. Progress bars completed and disappeared. A backup confirmed. Everything necessary existed in more than one place now. The family thread remained archived, unread, a block of history that no longer needed tending. Names stayed listed. Messages stayed frozen where they were left. Nothing demanded response. A chair scraped lightly as it pushed back. The screen dimmed. The lid came down slowly, not ceremonially, just the way it always did at the end of a day that had resolved itself elsewhere.